this is Russ. Yeah, it's time to talk e-bikes again. I just received an email this morning asking me if I had ever ridden the lectric Nomad 2. Yes, I did. I had a review of that. And to compare that against the Hemiway D5 2.0. Ooh, this is an interesting one, huh? Now, typically, I don't like to do comparisons between manufacturers. I don't think it's fair for them because both of these bikes are actually very good, all right? So, but in the interest of this particular comparison, I figure I will tell it here on the YouTube channel and share with you guys how I make decisions as well as to which bikes I will keep and which bikes I will move on, okay? So I told him on the email that I had recently just sold the lectric Nomad 2. Yeah, I've been in the mode of trying to reduce my e-bikes in the house, as you know. And just for your information, I'm down to 8 e-bikes now and 1 e-trike in the house. Yeah, not bad, huh? Yeah, we got a couple more to move on. All right, my hope is to move on at least 2 more of those e-bikes. Yeah. And so anyway, I said, okay, well, let me clarify first. Are you talking about the Nomad 2 or the Nomad 2X? Because if you think about it, if you go strictly by pricing, then it is the correct comparison. Nomad 2 and the D5 2.0 from Himiway are priced at the same price. They're both, I think, $19.99. The Nomad 2X, I believe, is $23.99, making it about $400 more expensive. So I said the thing is, though, is that between the same priced models, the Himiway has a full suspension frame, right? Versus the Nomad 2 does not. The Nomad 2 only has a front fork suspension, all right? Now, if you compare it against the Nomad 2X, the 2X has the full suspension frame suspension as well as the front fork suspension. So in terms of that particular feature, it's actually closer to the Hemiway D5 2.0, all right? So I'm not sure whether he was really trying to compare it against the 2X or the 2. So I had to go based on what he asked, which was the Nomad 2. So my answer to him was between the two, I felt that the Himiway offered a little bit more for the money because it is a full frame suspension, right? There's a rear suspension on there, and then there's also the front fork suspension. Both of these models are 750 watt motors. Both of the models have 90 Newton meters of torque, all right? So if you just go by specifications, between the two models and the battery. Okay, let's talk about battery. I think the Himiway is a 15 amp hour battery and roughly the same with the lectric. I think both of them say 15 amp hour, but I don't know truly. Some of these bikes, sometimes when they say 15, it could be like 14.7 or whatever, right? But basically they claim about the same, okay? So the range shouldn't be much different. The motor are similar, okay? The main difference I see here is really frame suspension versus non-frame suspension. So to answer his question, I said, if you're asking me specifically for the comparison of the Nomad 2 versus the Himiway D5 2.0, I'd have to go with the Himiway D5 2.0 because it gives me one extra thing that the lectric does not. Now, there are other features, of course, that you have to look at. As far as, in the menu of the bike, is there certain things there that's better for you than the other menu of the bike? So those are personal feelings, but in terms of the sheer mechanics of the bike, I chose the Himiway over the lectric simply to keep, that is for now, simply because one had a full suspension, one doesn't, okay? But if I had space in the house, would I keep them both? I would say, yeah, I would keep them both because they're both very good bikes. Now, if you were to take the lectric, trying to get the models properly here, Nomad 2X, all right? Now, between the two of those, the 2X from specification-wise, I've never ridden one, I can't tell you for sure, But based on specifications, it outdoes the Hemiway D5 2.0. It's also a 750 watt motor, but its torque is a higher torque. I think they have at least like 100 Newton meters. I think the other two both had 90 Newton meters of torque. Nomad 2X either has 100 or 110, something like that. So on paper, this bike should be able to go over hills better than the other two bikes. Okay, on paper. Sometimes when the actual riding, it may or may not be the case, right? But on paper. Battery, it's still not that large of a battery, all right? I like to see bikes today have 20 amp hour batteries, but I understand why some companies don't do that. Like, for instance, the other batteries on those bikes are like 15s. The 20 amp hour battery will just give you more range. You can go farther with it, but it also means the bike will be heavier, right? And it's going to cost more too, because you got a larger battery in there. So certain concessions have to be made in order for other things to happen. There you go. I'm trying to get the word out. So in the Himiway's case, I had noticed that the original D5 had a 20 amp hour battery, but the D5 2.0 does not. So you look at this and you go, well, why? Why did they make that decision? I think it's because they gave you the suspension and they took away the batteries. They have to make some decisions as to keeping pricing a certain way. Like if they had a 3.0, I would hope to see like a 20 amp hour version of the D5 2.0, right? That would make sense to me. But again, the pricing would go up. So at least for me, when I make decisions as to which bikes I will hang on to, which bikes I will move on, I have the back-to-back comparison, just like he's trying to decide between these two models from two different brands. What's most important for me and why, right? So as I look at this and I'm thinking, okay, the 20 amp hour battery would be nice. Neither one of these models have it, right? Even the 2X doesn't have it. What would I choose? And I would have to go with the Himiway at this point because of the frame suspension and the pricing of $19.99. To get that frame suspension, I have to spend another $400 for the lectric. Does that make sense? That's how I see things in my mind, okay? Now, if price is no object, then possibly the lectric would be the choice because the 2X of the Nomad would give me the best of everything, right? But it costs you $400 more. So these are some things that I look at. Now, what about other features, like features in the menu? Well, I have to look at, do I use all the features that these bikes offer? And a lot of times I don't. I mean, sometimes I'm just riding around the street, as you notice. And so whether a bike has, certain features and the other bike doesn't, or it has a certain display screen function that I can see that the other one doesn't, does it really mean that much to me when I'm actually riding around the neighborhoods? And the answer is no, it really isn't. So I also looked at, does 20 amp hours really make a difference to me today? And the answer would be no, it really doesn't. I don't go far enough to even eat up the 15 amp hour battery. So really, do I need the additional weight of a 20 amp hour battery? And the answer is, in today's riding that I'm doing as I'm getting older, the answer would be no. I needed those 20 amp hour batteries when I was doing rides, like 66-mile rides to the Botanic Garden and back. I needed two 20 amp hour batteries in order to make it there and back. And I would have to pedal quite a bit of that in order to do it, all right? So do I do that today? And the answer is no, I don't. And will I be doing it in the future? And the answer is probably no, because in my area, as you know, we have a lot of regulations now. I can't even pass through the city of Glenview with an e-bike without being illegal because they've banned all e-bikes. And even getting into that area, I would have to ride at like 12 miles an hour on the path and everything. It's just not that enjoyable for me anymore. So you have to kind of look at certain factors when you're choosing your bikes and whether those features on the bike really makes a difference to you in reality or not, all right? Now, let's go further than this, all right? Let's take those two bikes out of the equation now. Let's talk about the wired bike, yeah, because everyone's always talking about the wired bike, right? As you might know, I recently moved the wired cruiser onto another viewer as well. And the reason is, as much as I like the power of that bike, I can't use it in my area. Now, others have said, just break the law and do it. Yeah, we're not going to do that. Okay, you might be able and want to be able to do that, but I'm not going to do that. You have to kind of stay true to yourself as to what you're going to do and what you're not going to do. Okay, and for me, I'm not going to do that. So really, do I need that wired cruiser? And the answer is no, I don't. If I really wanted the speed, I would have kept it. But I've never been about the speed like that, okay? What I liked the bike for was the ability to immediately get out of a situation that might be dangerous for me. Like if, for instance, somebody was coming after me, I could hit that throttle and I'd be out of there in a moment, okay? Its pickup is so much quicker than any of the other bikes I've ever had, okay? If a dog was chasing me, can I outrun that dog? Yeah, I think I can. With the wired cruiser, I could absolutely do it, all right? What about these other bikes? Can I outrun the dog? Maybe not. You see what I'm saying? So, but then I have to also look at how often will a situation like that happen. And the wired cruiser was a heavier bike on top of that too. I mean, that thing was 110, 115 pounds with the double battery on there. It wasn't an easy bike to move around, even getting it out the door. It was hard to even move that bike to get it out the door, backing it out with all the bikes in the way and in the living room and everything, and trying to back it out and then get it out of the door. It was tougher than any of the other bikes. So, and it's big, right? So I think, at least for me, maybe not for you, but at least for me, I had to kind of say, you know, in reality, do I really need this? And do I really use this? If I don't really need it or use it, then should I keep it? Right? So in my case, I said, no, it's time to move these things on. I'm going to go back to the main reasons I bought an e-bike in the first place, which was to help my knee and just to enjoy the ride, because I'm basically going to be riding the streets, as we all know, all right? I'm not going into the forest reserves. And if I do, I will take a lesser type of bike that's not as threatening looking. If I rode the cruiser in the forest preserve, you know how many comments I would be getting from people? Yeah, it's an intimidating looking bike coming down the road, okay? I would be riding more like a basic commuter style bike, right? That looks just like a normal bike. If in a quick glance, you wouldn't even know it's an e-bike. That's the kind of bike I would ride in the forest preserves, all right? And we know that those bikes, they don't have 20 amp hour batteries. A lot of them don't, because, you know, they get a thin down tube in there, and if the battery is integrated in the down tube, it can't be 20 amp hours. The batteries are just physically too large to do that. You know, if you have a big fat down tube, it's going to be a dead giveaway, right? Now, certain bikes, they color code the battery cover as well, so it looks just like part of the bike. You don't know. I mean, you could look at the hub motor and say, oh, look, there's a motor on the back wheel. But when you're moving that quickly, and if you're on a commuter style bike, those hub motors are kind of thin as well. They're not big fat things sticking out like a 4-inch fat tire bike would have. So it's less noticeable. And those are the type of bikes I would ride in those type of situations. So are those bikes the most capable bikes? And the answer is no, obviously not, right? So what I'm basically saying is that when I make comparisons of things, I have to look at it. How am I going to ride this thing? Where am I going to ride this thing? How am I going to be perceived? That's how I make the decisions. And even when I'm keeping or selling off a bike, I make the same basic choices, because as you know, I'd rather keep them all. If they gave me everything, I would keep them all, but I can't. It's just, you just can't. It's just too many. You have to make choices as to what to keep and what to move on. Now, on the average person, you know, they're not in the same situation as me. You know, they're still trying to make a decision on their very first e-bike. So here's my suggestion to you guys. Okay, when you're comparing different bike models and different brands, go based on brand reputation first off. Okay, but again, even reputation sometimes could be an issue. As we know with the Rad Power Bikes thing, I mean, that was the #1 e-bike company in the United States, and now they're Chapter 11, right? So, but still, you know, go on reputation, go on brand recognition, and then also look at the features that are offered, but are they the features that you would use? That's the key. If it has features and you don't think you'll ever really need that in the way you plan to ride it, to pay extra money for something like that may not be worth it. Like even for, let's talk about, again, back to the frame suspension thing. Do you really need that? Well, let me tell you this. If the cost of a bike is $400 more to get that frame suspension, you know what I would do? You already know what I would do, right? I'd forego that and I'd buy a seat post. Yeah, I'd buy a suspension seat post because I can get something similar in feel, although not exactly the same as a full bike frame suspension, but similar in feel for a lot less money, you see. So there are ways that you can upgrade the bikes that you buy to give you something that it didn't have, right? So seat post versus frame suspension, I prefer the frame suspension, right? Not everybody does. But if it's a $400 difference, no. I think what I would do if I had a choice between the Nomad 2 and the 2X, I'd buy the 2 and buy a seat post. But the thing is the Nomad 2 actually has a seat post suspension. So now you have to look at it and go, okay, well, it has a seat post suspension, whereas the Hemiway has the frame suspension. Which of the two would you choose? I already told you, I'd rather have the frame suspension. So, you know, it's really what's important to you, right? What would you prefer to have? So, but they're both capable bikes. Yeah, they're both very good bikes, and you know, to move out the Velatric was a tough decision to move out. Now, interestingly, I did sell the Velatric for a fairly decent price. Yeah. It was actually sold along with the Rad Power Bikes Radster Road Large. Yeah, so I made a deal with the purchaser, gave him an extremely good deal on the combination of the two, just to help move the Rad Power Bikes out, and he was perfectly fine with it. He said, you know, it seems fine, everything's good, and you know, hopefully nothing happens to it, you know, during the time that he has it, but at the price that he bought it at, it was very hard to beat it. So he says, yeah, I'm going to buy them both. So here's an interesting thing too. I'll share a little story with you about that purchase, and I hope he doesn't mind that I mentioned this. I'm not telling the name, so nobody knows who you are, okay? But he was originally, I asked him, do you have anything to transport these two bikes? I mean, a lot of times when people pick up bikes from me, you know, it's already hard just to get one bike in the vehicle if they don't have a bike rack. And he said he had a truck, but he was going to hang the front wheel off of the back of the truck. I said, you can't do that on any bike. Maybe on a mountain bike you can do that. I've seen people do that on mountain bikes where they just hang the front wheel off the rear tailgate of the truck. Two heavy e-bikes doing that, you demolish the tailgate if you do that, and you damage the bike. So I said, look, I have that used magicycle rack, e-bike rack. I says, why don't you buy that? And I gave him a deal on that too. I said, I'd rather give you the deal, you know, lose a little money on it, but then at least I know those two bikes get back to his home safely. Yeah, he was coming from out of town. Okay, so he's out of, when I say out of town, I mean from out of state. All right, I says I could just imagine in my mind that thing bouncing around on the back of a tailgate across state. I said, that's not going to make it. I said, by the time he gets it home, it'll be so damaged up. I says, I can't see that happening. I mean, I don't even want to sell it to you if you're going to do that, because I can't see in my mind to damage up the bikes like that, let alone his own vehicle. So he bought all three things, and I followed up with him to make sure, you know, everything got home safely. And he said, yeah, it did. So he said it was a good idea to get the bike rack. Get a bike rack, guys. I mean, if you're going to transport two bikes that are heavy like that, get a bike rack. Yeah, don't even think twice. Get a bike rack. By the way, I still have those bike racks if you want it from, and now it becomes a sales pitch. Yeah, if you want those Hollywood racks, I still have two brand new in-the-box Hollywood racks. Go to russisright.com and go look for it, all right? All right, and you have to be local. We tried to see if we can, you know, ship that, but after finding out the shipping was over $140, some ridiculous price like that, it's not even worth it, because it's heavy, you know, it's metal. So I said, no, these are also going to have to be things that people pick up. They cannot ship these. So, okay, here's the thing. if you buy an e-bike, a used e-bike from me, and you need a rack, I can sell you one, but I'm not going to build those things. Okay, so transporting it back would be an issue unless you want to sit in the police department and build that rack on in the police department parking lot, because I'm not going to build it for you. All right, I've built one before. I built one for my sister. She has one of those Hollywood racks, and last time I went to San Francisco, she asked me to build it. That was my trip when I fell off the e-trike. Remember that one? I built the rack for her. No, actually, I built the rack the last time before that trip. Yeah, the last time before that trip, I built the rack for her. So, yeah, it takes a while to build that rack. It's not a quick build. It takes a little bit of time. So, I'm not going to bring it to the police department and build it for you. All right, you're going to have to bring it home and build it yourself. So, all right. That's all I got for you guys for today. I don't know how it segued into that, but make your own decisions as to which bike features is most important to you and how you plan to ride. That'll be the way to go, okay? At least for me, between those two models, I chose the Hemiway. Yeah, and Himiway has a great reputation too, so both of them do. Lectric has a great reputation, so does Hemiway. So you can't go wrong with either one, but in this particular case, Hemiway won out. All right, hit the like and subscribe button. I'll talk to you guys next time.